welcome to my YouTube channel. I wanted to talk about what books I've read this last month. This is going to be for August. Mainly the reasoning behind this is I want to talk about the books that I read, and frankly, don't know where else to talk about them anymore. So I'm just going to get started. And I'm looking down here because my notes are down here. So I read Vagrant Soldier Ares, and I got through volumes 16 through 25. I finished the series for that one. It's by, so that one was really good. I really liked it. I'm going to put the images right here. I really liked it a lot. The ending was kind of disappointing just because they built up this red-eyed swordsman the entire series. He was going to be the big bad. He was who we were going to face towards the end of the series, at the end. And it was really disappointing. Like, we spent the entire series fight with Ares in war with Michael, fighting his friend, fighting against this massive military attack against his country, the country that he was allied with. And then you get, like, I think 2 books of the whole series are just kind of on the red-eyed soldier, or red-eyed swordsman. I liked all of the war with Michael, but that ending I wish was better. Another one that he recommended to me was Marchen Awaken's Romance, I think is like the full title. That one's by Nobuyuki Anzai, or Anzai. I read the last 2 novels for that one. It was alright. It was very, like, standard shonen tournament-y kind of manga. There was a lot of ass pulls in terms of the wins. Like, the good guys always, literally in every fight, had a new ability that was exactly what they needed to win the fight every single time. It was almost like there was no challenge for them at any point. So, it was interesting. I'm glad I read it. Probably not one I'm going to revisit, sorry. I also read the last couple volumes of My Hero Academia. That one was by Kohei Horikoshi. I did that one mostly just to get it done. I remember really liking it when it first came out. I remembered liking the powers, how everyone was so unique. I loved the designs of the characters. I hated Mineta. All of the standard things people think about for that series, really. The ending, again, it's been kind of disappointing for a while, but it's not something that I'm going to be sitting here in, like, 5 years talking about in the same way I would talk about, like, Bleach or One Piece or, hell, even, like, the Pokemon manga that one's a great manga. I also read Psyren, which is another one that my friend recommended to me. I finished that one. That one's by Toshiaki Iwashiro. Really good. Like, fantastic. Almost all the way through the whole thing. I'm a picky person when it comes to endings, if you haven't already noticed. I wasn't as into the ending, and I liked this, again, really liked the powers, how it was all set up. The battles were really interesting. It did kind of get a little too crazy towards the end, and, I kind of figured who the big bad was going to be, and then the main villains teaming up to fight the real big bad. So, the order that I'm going to do most of the, like, traditional novels in is going to be the order in which I read them. So there's going to be, like, highs and lows in terms of how I feel about a lot of them, just spread out through the video. So we're first going to start with Year of Wonders by Geraldine Brooks. It is from 2001. It's a historical fiction book set during the plague years in England. This village goes under quarantine after they discover that a person that was boarding there in the main character's house had plague and died of it, and it's starting to spread around the village. So I really enjoyed this book, especially looking back upon our own, like, recent experiences with pandemics and sickness and quarantines. it's so interesting to see like those same concepts, especially set in a time that far back. I loved the main character. She was really great. The pastor, I really liked him in the beginning. Towards the end, he was starting to lose me, but I liked that he was losing me towards the end because it really highlighted a lot of his choices towards the beginning and the middle of the books in terms of what he was doing, the choices that he made, the act, like, and even the thought process that could have that was probably going on when he was making those choices. The ending, I'm okay with the ending. It was just okay. Kind of weird a little bit, but nothing too crazy. So what I really liked was there was a couple points where they focused on the wealthy family that lived in the village. They talked about how from the moment that the plague started appearing, that family skedaddled. And then when they came, they abandoned the community went into lockdown. The community survived that lockdown and really came through. A lot of them came back closer. Some of them came back crazy. But they survived. They banded together. They really took care of one another. But then the wealthy family comes back once the plague is gone, and they expect everything to be the same. And I was so happy that it wasn't, and that the community basically just shunned this family, and this family more or less was just falling apart at the end. Alright, so next up is The Unwomanly Face of War by Svetlana Alexievich. Loved this book. It was amazing, beginning to end. It made me cry. It had me in on the edge of my seat in so many different parts. The goal of this book was for the author to really find the women's war. This is about the Russian women that were serving and fighting for communist Russia against Nazi Germany in World War II. It really discusses their experiences. It does a great job at juxtaposing those against what the men want. The men throughout the book, it's often discussed that when the men are in the room, the women are required or heavily encouraged by the men to only discuss what the men deem is appropriate for war. They talk about the battle plan. They're supposed to talk about the battle plans and the troop movements and this victory or that loss or this aspect of the war. They're not supposed to talk about their own experiences, what happened to them. They want to talk about the troop movements, or they want to talk about the camaraderie that was built up between the troops and the brotherhood of the soldiers. This book, it's hard to describe. It's such dark moments compared right next to these beautiful moments. This moment of putting yourself and the safety of your comrades before everything, before your own life. All right, next up is this is wild to follow up the Unwomanly Face of War with The Wisdom of Crowds by Joe Abercrombie. This might be my favorite book. This is definitely the best book that I read last month. It's everything that I've ever wanted in fantasy. It's the culmination of this entire series of 2 different trilogies and 3 other books that are just short stories or side stories in this universe. I love Joe Abercrombie's writing. I love it so much to the point that I'm going to be picking up his other series, all of his other books at this point. He has a new book coming out next year that I'm already excited for. But I digress. The Wisdom of Crowds is simply amazing. The character growth for our main characters I never thought I would be actively cheering for for the king to be King Oslo to be the winner of everything, that I wanted him to be the one to succeed. The amount that he grew from just this whiny little baby to this actual, like, I'm this self-sacrificing hero. Like, he may never have actually, like, fought against anyone himself, but he was the hero. He was who the people needed. He was King Orso. If he'd been able to maintain control after fighting Leo in that Leo's failed rebellion, I was so excited when he beat Leo. I was so happy. But then the people rising up and plunging the kingdom into chaos, the murders, the deaths, the idea that you had to. It was. I understand the goal behind it. I understand the theme behind it. Burning everything down to rebuild something better, stronger, and more sustainable than what it was. To destroy everything in order to create something new. I get that. They could have just let Orso, can maintain control. I get why they did it. I understand that it was to get rid of Baez's control with the banks and to just free the kingdom from just Baez in general. But I mean, Orso was going to do a good job. He was going to be a king for the people. He'd made that very clear to it. Not even just to something he was saying to Everett. That was something he was going to be working towards. That's what he wanted. But that's not how it ends. That's just not how life works a lot of the time, unfortunately. Alright, let's talk about Brock and Savine. I loved Brock's whole arc throughout this entire thing. It was just simply stellar every step of the way, every chance he was given, every time he tried to fight himself, his own demons, fighting through, trying to be this better person, only to get dragged back to hell every single time. And then at the end, when finally given the choice, every single time, he would drag himself, he would crawl back. He would crawl back from hell, over shattered glass and through the blood of his friends, even through the pain that he himself had caused. He chose to try and be the better person. In the end. He chose to try and be the better person in the end every single time. And it was just a beautiful... Brock's story might have been my favorite throughout the entire trilogy. Just from beginning to end. I loved him. And then, just intertwined with Brock, Savine. The reveals of, like, who she was, who she is, her own self-revelations of who she thought she was and who she actually wants to be. The way those two selves within her were constantly fighting with one another. And that finally, in the end, if we get more books in this series, I would love to get more books in this series. I can see Savine really being a major player in the next series, in terms of if we do another generation skip where it's Savine's children. I could see Savine being the parent that's trying to get her children to understand that they can't fall onto these old world beliefs, these beliefs that the royalty and the royalty and the upper echelons of society are better than the lower echelons, that they're better than the masses. She's lived with the masses. She's lived through the horrors that the masses can create. She became a better person living through those horrors. And I can see her trying to impart those lessons on her children, and that being a big theme in the next series if we get more of these books, which I really hope we do, because this series was amazing. The Wisdom of Crowds might just be this might just be my favorite fantasy series, if I'm being completely honest. Okay, now we're gonna have a series of books that were good to decent. I'm not gonna have as much to say about each of them because, frankly, they were not as they weren't as interesting to me. I liked a lot of them. There weren't any that I was like, this is a bad book, don't read it. I liked them all. I think they all have their, like, good aspects. There's some that I think are way better than others. There's going to be one that I think is amazing. But let's start with Maame. Pretty good. About a woman that's taking care of her father while he's ill. Her father dies, and it's all about the fallout of her relationship with her family, her brother, her mother, her relationship with herself, in trying to figure out almost trying to figure out who she is after his death, and who she wants to be in the wake of all of this. Pretty good. Not my favorite. I liked it. Yeah. I don't have a lot to... like I said, I'm not going to have a lot to say about a few of these. Alright, so next up was a YA novel, Our Best Intentions by Vibhuti Jain. It was good. Not my favorite. Something that I think I'd recommend to, like, my siblings that are in high school themselves. It was well done. I think it had really good things to say about, like, assimilation and class and the privileges that different people have within those classes, or like the privileges that classes have over one another, or even the privileges of people within classes have between one another. Yeah, it was good. Next up is Hang the Moon by Jeannette Walls. Another good one. Not my favorite one. That's not going to be a favorite of mine. Probably not going to revisit it. It's historical fiction set in the 20s. It's during the Prohibition era. It was it scratches the historical fiction itch for me. I liked the action parts. There was a part with where the main character, she and someone that was at that point a love interest, get into an airplane and they drop a bomb on a rival family's farm. That was weird and fun, but it wasn't anything to write home about. I liked it. It was just fun. That's what more could you want? You Could Make This Place Beautiful by Maggie Smith. So, to be honest, I originally thought this was by a memoir by the actress from Harry Potter and Downton Abbey. So when I first started it and immediately realized it was not by her, I was a little disappointed, but I ended up really loving it. It's just a beautiful book. I don't know if it's going to sit well with everybody. I related to it a lot in the aspects that it's this woman talking about her divorce and the things that she experienced while going through it, her experiences leading up to it, her experiences, the experiences of her children, and like it really made me think about my own parents' divorce. I related to the kids. She talks about in the book she says a few different times that she's not going to tell the readers about like what she said to her children, or how she thinks her children felt about certain things. And it's one of those things where I really appreciated that as a child of divorce. It was really touching, and it really made me think about my own parents' divorce and how they each handled it in their own way. And I feel for her children, and that I understand in an aspect of what they're going to be going through and what their lives are going to be like. So next up we have Temptation of the Force by Tessa Gradden. I love Star Wars. Star Wars is a huge thing. I'm planning to do a whole video on the entirety of what is currently the canon Star Wars novels, and that's gonna be a fun one. I own a bunch of them, but particularly, and what this is set in the High Republic, and that is particularly my favorite era of Star Wars currently. It's just so interesting to see the Jedi at the height of their power, even at this height, that you can see the roots of what's going to cause them to fail, what's going to cause their fall. I'm so excited for them to continue with this series. I'm so excited to get to the end of the Nihil, the Storm Wall, to get to figuring out what does Marchion Rao want to do with what's he trying to do? Like, is he just an agent of chaos? Is he just trying to rule the galaxy? What is his goal? What is his ultimate plan through all of this? I love that they finally brought the Drangir back into the books, at least the adult novels. I know that they're pretty common throughout the comics. I haven't really read the comics yet. I'm trying to start getting into those. But I'm glad the Drangir are back in a really meaningful way, because I think one of the big things for me that I've been missing in a lot of the High Republic is the lack of this dark side, the lack of the dark side of representation in the dark side of the Force. I've been missing that. I love every story needs a good villain, or not every story needs a good villain, but I believe in Star Wars they really benefit from having a good villain to make counterpoints to the Jedi, and to really showcase why the Jedi are the balance that they need. But what I really loved about this book is that they finally set down and set in stone that it is okay for the Jedi to love one another, even in a romantic sense. And it's not even that that love is expressly forbidden, which they discuss in Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones. It is that attachment is what is forbidden for them. You can love things without becoming attached. You can love things, you can love your friends and accept that at some point you grow apart, and you can still love someone even if you've grown apart from one another. You can love someone in the most romantic sense possible and be able to accept that they need to go do the things they need to do, and that you can't hold them to yourself just because you want them to be with you. You need to let people be. You need to let them go. You need to let yourself be okay with them having their own lives. Alright, so the last two books, The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama, I liked it. It's basically a self-help book. It talks a lot about her own strategies and her own toolkit for how she handles the stresses of life and the ups and downs, and how she goes about things. I think it was interesting. Yeah, it was a good read. So the last book I read in August was I Was Here by Gail Forman. I liked it. It was interesting. It wasn't really something that I was super into the whole time I was reading it. The concept is this girl's friend commits suicide. She ends up, the main character discovers that she was on this pro-suicide website, and she was receiving tips from and advice and encouragement from a user on there. And she ends up tracking down this user and confronting them, which is insane. And even while I was listening to the book, I was sitting there and shouting, like, you need to just go to the police with this. And then at the end of the book, it's revealed that the police know about this, all of this already. And it was okay. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be making more videos. I'm hoping to be able to post like a top 10 video. Like I said earlier, I want to do a whole video on the Star Wars books that I've read. I'd love to talk about like Stormlight Archive or Mistborn. I want to do a whole deep dive. I want to do a deep dive into the Blade of I want to do a deep dive into the Blade itself, and A Little Hatred by both of them by Joe Abercrombie. They're both from the same series as The Age of Wisdom, not The Age of Wisdom, The Wisdom of Crowds, which I want to do like a whole thing where I go through the entire books with you all and just really have a deep discussion on the themes and the characters, because they're so good.